Welcome back, Romanian enthusiasts, to Season 3, Present Tense. Long time no conjugating, but worry not. We're about to wrap up the present tense with the last 2 videos on Conjugation 4. Yeah, there will be 2 videos instead of just 1, because I decided to allocate enough time for the I and endings individually. This conjugation is the heaviest conjugation by far, and we should give it the credit by patiently spending the time to study all its messy intricacies. We will go into the whiteboard soon, covering the classics. So going through the issues that might arise, the things to consider when learning this conjugation, and what makes it so tricky to master. Then we will go through the main principles to consider when conjugating a verb ending in I in the infinitive. And finally, cover all the 4 possible ways to conjugate a verb ending in I. Yeah, there are actually 4. But before we get into all that, I want to let you know that we released the first activity on Patreon, a listening activity for A2. And this week, we will also release a reading and vocabulary activity for Tier 2 and above. It is level A1 to A2. So, make sure to check out Patreon every Saturday if you want to further your Romanian skills. Don't forget we release a weekly quiz on Thursday, testing the knowledge from the weekly YouTube video on Discord under the Only Romanian channel. And we engage on a weekly conversation every Tuesday on the Language Questions channel on Discord, where we chat about your journey in Romanian, how it was so far, and what objectives you have for the future. Oh, and how could I forget? This month's Tier 3 Q&A livestream will be available here on YouTube too on Thursday, the 29th of February. There I will talk more about what plans we have with Patreon, but also I plan to cover 1 beginner topic, the useful material for starting with Romanian, 1 intermediate, diphthongs, and 1 advanced topic, cases, all explained for beginners. So add that date into your calendar, Thursday, the 29th of February, and the starting time will be either 18 o'clock or 19 o'clock Eastern European time. And feel free to take this opportunity and join this free live stream here on YouTube and ask any questions you might want. So before we get into the nitty-gritty details of this Conjugation 4, let's get on the same page with what we'll be covering today. How to build the present tense of the Conjugation 4 verbs that end in I. So verbs like a fugi, a citi, a suferi. They, in the infinitive to form from English, end in Romanian in I. Cool, let's now flip the page and get into the caveats. Oh, and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you find it useful. It only takes 2 seconds on the clock. Long time no conjugation indeed, guys. So we're here at Conjugation 4, verbs ending in I. This is the first part of a 2 video series covering the Conjugation 4. I have spent so much time away from this whiteboard that I even forgot how to use it. So, Conjugation 4, verbs ending in I. Not in if that wasn't clear already. Cool. So, let's go straight into the caveats. 3 things that you need to know before you even start learning this conjugation is that, yes, it is the messiest conjugation. By that I mean it has 3 different ways of conjugating, depending if it's a short form or a short conjugation or no ending, a long form or a long conjugation with esc, and then the irregularities, which I'm going to come into that in a second. So it has a lot of variation, so you would like to take that into consideration before you start doing this, because you might end up later on that you have like a very weird conjugation, and you see a verb in a really weird with a weird ending, and You might wonder why is it like that. Well, bear that in mind. There's a lot of variation here, so you want to take it step by step. There's a mix of the first and second conjugation in third person. I'm going to come to this. You'll see basically this between the short and long form, and then the irregularities. The irregularities use a bit of the first conjugation, and all the others use something closer to the second conjugation. If that is alien language to you, by that I mean in third person and in third person. So you get this into the irregularities and this into those two. Let's get this cleaned up and move to the third one. There's no way of distinguishing between the short and long forms, but the irregularities are quite easy to spot. What that means is the irregularities are finally quite easy to spot, right? That's a premiere in Romanian. But yes, this is what happens with the I conjugation. Unfortunately for you, and even for Romanian learners, even for Romanians in general, there is no way of distinguishing between those two. So you just have to practice, or memorize if that works for you. That was a strange part. Cool. So getting this out of the way, bear this in mind before you start learning. Then we go to the principles, which are really not much different to anything else you've seen this season. I'm gonna scroll out like that, zoom out to see. So you get the root of the verb, except those irregularities. With some irregularities, you take actually the full infinitive, which is quite interesting to see. Similarly, in a way to, although not quite, but it's similar in a way to the first conjugation I when it, first conjugation A, right? When you get the UA. So here you get something like UI. If that is completely confusing, then please check the first conjugation. You have the link somewhere up here. Coming to the second principle, the short form has no ending, but uses I or E in the third person singular to build different conjugations. So what that means is, if you have seen in conjugation 1 with A, along the way from top to bottom, like the conjugation gets an or at, or the in the third person singular. Then in the second conjugation, you get an E, you get an M, and so on. Now with fourth conjugation, you'll get I's for the most part, but in the third person singular, you get an E, except for some irregularities, as we have discussed already, where you might get an right? So what else? Here we have the third principle, which is watching out for the patterns. This is something that I highly recommend, regardless of the tense or the conjugation. Watch out for patterns. There are so many patterns in Romanian that you really want to spot them. If you get confused, maybe ask somebody. You can ask us on Discord, or just check those conjugations down below when we will actually go to conjugate them. Watch for those patterns, because they will just make your life easier, and you will stop being confused with those questions, such as is this the right conjugation? Is this the right form? Is this the long form or the short form? And so on. Watch out for the patterns. Third person plural. This is definitely one that needs to be taken into account for. And that's because, already probably it takes the first or the third person singular. So the ye, yele we are talking about here, it takes either the yo or the yel, ya form. So same as earlier, practice or memorize the verbs using the long form. There's no trick, there's no rule. Sadly, this is Romanian. Now that we are done with the principles, let's have a quick look at basically what we're gonna have on our plate today. The no ending verbs, as usual, the symbol for no ending. If that's new to you, that's what it means. It has no ending. It's a O with a line in the middle. And then the long ending is the Esc Este. This is something that I have noticed more often than not that happens in my classes. People get confused between the Esc Este and they confuse it with the Eziaza, which is actually conjugation 1, the A form. And what's an easy way to memorize or to be aware of the difference between them is that in the I form, so the one that we're talking about, well, the I conjugation, sorry for the confusion, the I conjugation, fourth conjugation, I ending, you get this Esc Este, which actually they look extremely similar to the way you conjugate to be, right? Because you get tu ești and el este. So extremely similar to this. So I is, and think about this, a fi, a fi is one of the first verbs you will learn, very regular and whatnot, but ends in I. So you can make this connection. I, a fi, and this specifically is the long ending of the I conjugation. So not as, and not yaza. And finally, the irregular forms. Here we have a first look at how they end. So you have two categories, basically one that ends in ri, so ri, and the other one with verbs ending in ai, ui in the infinitive. All right, so that being said, I think we have the three things down: the caveats, the principles, and the group of verbs. I just noticed that I put those in the Romanian flag colors. That was absolutely not an intention. And let's move to the first, the no conjugation. What we've got here is a table with the endings. So probably you're familiar with this already. We have been using those kind of tables already in this season. You have the no ending for yo and yele, something not super different to what you have got already in the previous conjugations. Then the classic I here. As I said earlier, you'll use the I instead of A, for example, or E, there, here, and here. And then this is a bit strange probably for you, but yes, it uses E in the third person singular. This might be a bit harder to get used to or to memorize, but I think that the other ones, like this one, and this one, they should be quite straightforward. Now, let's remove this, and have a look at some examples where we will pick a completely random one to conjugate here. So we have verbs that end in I. I don't know if you spot this already, but you might want to notice that most of the verbs in this conjugation with this rule have a type of ending. Not all of them, obviously, but many of them have a type of ending that the second last letter would bring you to a phonetic change. Yes, as well. If you don't know what that means, is that T, so normally what happens? T plus I, right, brings you to C, right? But if you take this rule the other way around, T minus I equals T. So be careful with that, because ascuți in the first person in the yo form, it will not be ascuți, it will be ascut. And the same for all the other ones that I highlighted here. Okay, let's just choose a random one maybe that uses this rule. Oh, and also, before I forget, this is the place where a veni and all its derivatives live in, this rule, reveni, deveni, a veni by itself. There are quite a few forms of veni with prefixes, and you want to start by knowing how to conjugate a veni first, and then the others. A veni, it's a bit of an irregular one. If you don't know how that is conjugated, you have eu vin, tu vii, el ea vine, noi venim, voi veniți, and ei, ele vin. And then all you got to do is from here put a de or a re in front of it, and you just have the other derivatives of a veni. Straight and simple, I guess. But I'm not going to focus on this now. Let's look at the table with another one. So let's use amirosi, maybe. Let's take two, shall we? Let's take amirosi because this will do something quite crazy here at the ending. Oh, a preveni, I forgot about this one in the list of aveni verbs. So amirosi, let's take it here. Amirosi. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. Înghiți. All right. So let's look at this. What do we do? What do we always do with those verbs? We cut the ending, right? So you get eu miros. You cut the I, you get eu miros. Quite easy, quite straightforward. Now, with two, what do? You add the I to this form, to the root. Yeah. And you get your tu miros. So that is already a phonetic change, because even though it ends in C here in the infinitive, you don't get from this one straight to this one. And this happens for every conjugation. You get this one, you cut the ending, you get here, and then after that, you put the I, and you get the tu form. Bear that in mind. Now, the yel, ya, here you get a phonetic change. Normally it would look like this, but probably you have seen already this happening with adjectives, for example, where you get an A here. Noi mirosim is quite straightforward. Voi mirosiți, same. And then ei, ele, it's the same, like highlighted here with blue, miros. And that's a mirosi. Now, with înghiți is very similar. You remove the I. As I said, you get the opposite of that phonetic rule, and you get înghit. Now, what happens? To înghiți, obviously you'll get an I because it is just how it is. After you add an I to a T, then ea înghite, nothing crazy happening there. Noi înghițim, because you add an I am, right? That's why here, for example, you don't get any change because it's E, it's not I. That phonetic rule happens with I. So înghițim, voi înghițiți, ei, ele înghit. Again, check this list of verbs. It's quite good. And if you have more questions, or if you have a verb that you might be confused of, ask us on Discord, leave a comment, feel free. No ending. Now, let's move to the long, and right, this is the short form, or the short conjugation. Now we're moving to the long form, or long conjugation, which is the esc. As you see here, this one is quite a common one. In Romanian, you have quite a few verbs in this conjugation. You get esc, ești, ește, and then im, it's esc. Here, nothing changes in noi and voi, but those three are quite mad, right? So you have to learn them and then use them. If what I said earlier helps, those two are very similar to tu ești and el, ea, este. So you might take that into consideration. Right, so here we will consider this list here full of very strange verbs. So I'm gonna take probably animeri, why not? That's I think quite this one to see. So nimeri, once again, eu nimeresc, you add esc after you cut the I, tu nimerești, el, ea nimerește, noi nimerim, voi nimeriți, and ei, ele nimeresc. So, looking at this example, we've got the infinitive cutting the I, nimer, that would be the root, nimeresc, nimerești, nimerește, nimerim, nimeriți, nimeresc. Quite straightforward. I think even like many people get scared about this one when they first look at it, but it's actually one of the most regular conjugation in Romanian. So just have to remember those. That's it. That's pretty much it. Have a look at this list and maybe improve a bit your vocabulary. Try to conjugate them based on this rule. Same here, try to conjugate the verbs with the rules from the table. And now, finally, we get to this really, really weird exception. So here we have verbs ending in ri in the infinitive and verbs ending in ei. I made this super big so you can see it. Îi and ui. Yeah, so 3 types of verbs. Here, if you look at this table, starting with the ri, we'll start with one by one, so we get everything out of the way in a kind of logical way. So this is extremely similar to what you have seen in the no conjugation. You might spot there are 2 big differences. One is here, and the second one is that this one is not the yo form anymore. Let me go back. So what I just said, not e, yeah, and the ye yele is the same as yel ya. You'll see that this ye yele is the same as yel ya, applies to both of those irregularities. So you at least you get that out of the box. I wanted to say out of the way, but whatever. And apart from that, you get this extremely strange thing, this right? So you get an in the third person when this ends in I. This might be extremely annoying. I don't think confusing is the right word here. I think annoying is the right word, because so far we've seen that it usually follows the rule of the infinitive. So if it was ending in A, the third person was getting an If it was ending in E, it was getting an E here. If it ends in I, as used to be so far, it's an E. You cannot get really an I, because that would be the same as the tu form. So, you know, now it's completely different. But there's nothing really to do about it. And you gotta know that when it ends in I and an R, so in ri, the third person would become something. By the way, this doesn't get removed completely. Just the I gets removed. Let's have a look at some of the verbs so we can make it clear. Coperi, descoperi, referi, suferi, oferi. I'm just going to take one here, oferi, for example, and show you what I meant a second ago. So, if you want, you can pause this video now and try to give it a go into conjugating this. If not, I will start conjugating right now. So, how do you do it? First, you do for the yo form, especially if you see this no ending here. You just take the root by cutting the ending. Eu ofer, quite straightforward. Tu oferi, again, quite straightforward. El, ea oferă. Noi oferim. Voi oferiți. Ei, ele oferă. Nothing super crazy, right? It's quite straightforward, just to be aware of those endings. Practice it with the examples. Oops. Practice it with the examples from here. Do as many as you can. Maybe make some sentences with them to practice. But this re is probably the easiest. Well, the easiest. It's easier than its counterpart, the other irregularity from here. So going to îi, ui, you have a... Okay, let me explain what those mean. This means nothing changes. It's a line. It stays the same. This means nothing's changing here as well. Then. This is where it's really, really interesting. I put a plus there rather than a minus. So this time you actually add an e to the infinitive. To the infinitive, not to the root. Yeah? So you add an e to îi, so it will become îie. You add an e to îi, so it's îie. And you add an e to ui, which becomes uie. You'll see that there is a very specific bunch of verbs in this group. But until then, I put pluses here as well because you add an m or a t to this ending. So îim, îiți, îim, îiți, uim, uiți. Then, since the ye, ele takes the el form, this will become the same. Now, what I meant earlier by being a very specific group of verbs. Look at this, right? Look at these lists. By the way, first one is with îi, second one with îi, third one with ui, if that is unclear. Molfăi, mormăi, năzări, plăscăi, șovăi. Those are all very, very specific verbs. They're all kind of making, well, at least the first two. Yeah, at least the first two. They are very specific verbs that that describe an action that is, this verb comes from an interjection. Yeah, so most of those are from sounds, like mormăi is from mor. This is what in Romanian a bear does. Or a ronțăi, it comes from ronț, which is what a rat does, for example. A bâlbâi is to blabber, for example, or to stutter, right? You get this sound, bul, bul, bul. It's weird, but this is how this group is, especially the îi and îi, because if you look at ui, for example, here, contribui, mântui, nărui, reconstitui, sui, zgudui, they're all a bit more practical verbs, I would say. It's definitely clearer, probably, understanding, because you will have the opportunity to practice them more often compared to this îi and îi. What I'm going to do here is probably take one from each. So I'm going to take one from here and one from here and conjugate them. And let's see. So how do we do this? I'm going to just move this guy out of the way like this. And I'm going to start from here. Let's take a molfăi, which is something that is quite oftenly used by mothers or parents to address their children who make a lot of noise when they're eating at the table. And I don't know, contribui seems like a decent one. Let's have a look at those. Yeah, and we're looking at this column here. Please feel free again to try to conjugate this on your own before I do it myself. Okay, so here As I said earlier, you take the whole verb, the whole infinitive, and then you build from that. This is very, very different to any other conjugation. And that's why it's quite special. This asterisk here doesn't mean anything specifically. It's just that I wanted to mention that you don't do anything to the infinitive. So also there is another important thing to know here. The accent is a bit different, the stress you put on conjugation. Because in the infinitive, as you might or might not know already, the infinitive, when you pronounce the infinitive, you put always the accent or the stress on the very last vowel, right? Because it's always a vowel. So it will be like molfăi. You do that because you want to specify which conjugation it is in. But the eu form, which is written the same, it gets the stress on a. Unfortunately, the whiteboard doesn't help me. But it's a molfăi, eu molfăi. Tu molfăi as well. El, ea molfăie. Yeah, you had an I. Noi molfăim, voi molfăiți. And ei, ele. Which one? Yes, molfăie. What I wanted to say earlier is this. So here, a molfăi, the accent goes here. And then when you start conjugating them, the accent goes here. So this is also very strange for Romanian. If you take it and break it into syllables, the infinitive will be something like mol, fă, I, and then eu, mol, făi. So here you get 3 syllables, here you get 2. Very strange, very strange. Anyways, a contribui. This one is nothing much different. So again, the syllable, right? You get a contribui, and then eu contribui. To contribui. You get the stress on the first I. El, ea contribuie, noi contribuim, voi contribuiți, ei, ele contribuie. And there you have it. This is basically it. I am gonna quickly tell you one last thing here, which probably needs a special mention. So those here are irregularities in the conjugation, ri, ei, îi, ui. But there is also irregular verbs. There are 2 worth mentioning here, very important. One that we have talked about already. I mean, both of them we really talked about already. A fi and a veni, right? If you don't know a fi and you're watching this video, then I don't have any clue of how you're trying to study Romanian. It's eu sunt. I'm gonna put it anyway here. Tu ești, el este, noi suntem, voi sunteți, ei, ele sunt. By the way, this is not on purpose. And then, yeah, so a veni with eu vin, tu vii, el, ea vine. We did this already, but just very quickly. I'm gonna put it here. Voi veniți, and ei, ele vin. This, by the way, since it uses the rule of eu sunt, ei sunt, eu vin, ei, ele vin, is the best to kind of, and also looking at the endings, right? Well, actually not here. No, this is just irregular. It's plain irregular. But a venit is definitely in this conjugation here. The first one with no ending. And that's it. We have everything right now. We have first the things that you want to be aware of when you start with those verbs in I, ending in I. The problems that might arise, then the principles, the things that you need to use in order to conjugate them correctly. Then the group of verbs, there are 3, and also the irregular verbs that are only kind of 2, although aveni is not really irregular. Let's just consider afi irregular. It's quite debatable here. And then you have the no ending, esc ending, and the irregular endings. So short and long forms. And I think that's pretty much about it. Make sure you practice this. That's the best advice I can give you. Practice this, conjugate them as many times as you can, use them in your active vocabulary. If you don't have anybody to talk to, just say it out loud. Say it to a bird or to a dog, but try to practice them as often as you can. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tune in on Patreon and Discord. We've got so many good things for you there. And coming next on this season is definitely going to be the second part of this Conjugation 4. So the verbs, which in my opinion are probably the most ignored group out of all of them. But trust me though, there are verbs in that category that you want to know. If you reach this point in the video without liking this video or subscribing to the channel, then what are you doing with your life? On that unnecessary aggressive comment, until the next time, la vedere.